Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to many of us. Welcome to Marketing Monday. CXO TV continues its mission to share knowledge with Marketing Monday, a chat series that began in 2020 and has completed over 150 episodes featuring industry top marketers. Today at CXO TV Marketing Monday, we have Behzaad Habibi, Marketing Director at Veeam Software, APAC, and Japan. Welcome, Behzaad. How are you doing today?
Hey Anuj, I'm doing very well. Thanks for inviting me over.
Pleasure is ours. To get started, let me ask you, Behzaad, what drew you to the world of marketing and being often considered dynamic, interesting, and at the very same time complex, not always easy to navigate? Your take on that?
I'm going to first start off by, something that you mentioned at the beginning of the introduction, right? You said 150 plus episodes. Now that is overwhelming, right? So firstly, congratulations if you run so many episodes. So I'm not too sure what more I can add, given the fact that you've probably had, stellar 150 marketers actually, speak to you and give a lot of insights. But hopefully through the course of this conversation, there's some value that we can kind of produce, as we kind of go forward. What drew me to this world of marketing? I think it's accidental, to be honest. I mean, I don't know whether to use the word by chance or to use the word accidental, because formally, as far as education is concerned, I actually am a marketer. So I did an MBA in marketing. So technically, I was always supposed to get into this domain. But the honest fact is, as you plunge into your career and you start navigating through the nuances of corporate life, a lot of times when you pick up a job, it's out of the need of having to do a job or finding a job when you first start off in your career. So 25 years back, as a management trainee, my first job was, we did everything. We had, including, creating voicemails for the company that I was working up, for the reception. We did everything from setting up those large monitors, for everyone's desk, because we were management trainees out of B school, right? Serve coffees even. At that point of time, if somebody had asked me, hey, you're a marketing guy, do you see yourself in marketing? The answer would have been absolutely no. I don't even know where my career is going. Okay. But then, as you navigate through the years, which then unfold into a couple of decades, right? People tend to find their niche, right? And then you get into this zone where you question yourself, are you doing something because of the need of you wanting to do a job, or do you actually translate that into a factor of what you truly enjoy doing every day? Now, for me as an individual, I love waking up every morning and, being creative. I know it's very cliche to say that marketing is like a mix of both arts and science, right? But it truly is, right? Because no 2 days of mine are the same. I work in an organization and I worked in an industry where I can genuinely afford to wake up and be creative and think outside of the box. I actually get paid for coming up with some of the most crazy creative ideas, which we can then bring to market because, and that's what marketers are there for. We are the dream merchants. We are the original dream merchants. So if you go back in time and think about a lot of the innovations that happened, they would never have really reached mainstream had it not been for somebody in a profession like ours who was able to take that idea, that innovation, and make it into something which gets, beyond just a product, right? So that's what brings me to this. And then there's this entire aspect of the science behind it as well, which is, what's kept me kept the lifeblood in the industry and kept me going personally as well. Because, personally, I've seen, especially in the last decade, my entire practice has completely transformed. The tools that we used to use a decade back are completely different from the tools today. The analytics that are on offer for marketers today, to be able to make more informed decisions, to be able to make sure that we understand where we are investing, to know how our, the sentiment that we're driving in the market, are just phenomenal, right? The tools that give us ability to manage our budgets better and the possibility to reach out to our audience in various formats, including some which are truly at the cutting edge of technology, is something that actually is the added edge to our profession. So I think it's a combination of all of these factors that keeps me going.
Thanks a lot. I think creativity, art and science, and you talk about the dream merchant. Thank you so very much. And in fact, AI tools, they have been adding to the growth. Thank you, Behzaad. And with this, let me ask you a little bit about the general perception which has been there, that one need to have this sales background to be a good marketer. Do you agree with that?
I can't say no, but I can't even say yes. It's a definite advantage. I can't say no because I actually did. I spent a few years in sales myself, right? But I think that's just me, right? And I know a lot of very 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 successful marketers who've not really come with the similar background. But I would say it's an advantage for sure because one of the most important ingredients, especially as you grow up the stack in any organization, and let's say if people aspire to be CMOs, is to be able to understand the P&L, is to be able to understand the nuances of a business. And then as marketers, we all want a seat in the boardroom. We want ourselves to be hands in glove with our sales teams. No sales general manager is going to appreciate a marketing team that's just focused on pipeline without really looking at whether the pipeline is actually hitting revenue or not, right? So the idea really is that how do you build the sensitivities in marketers who've got this great amount of skill set, but you need to be able to make that skill set valuable to your biggest stakeholder, which is your sales team, because that needs to translate into some sort of value which drives the eventual revenue for you. So it's almost as if you want to be able to make those decisions where you're actually in partnership with your sales teams, because it's you're then 1+1. Your efforts are not isolated towards you being operating as different teams. And then more importantly, as I mentioned, as you kind of keep growing in your career, right? You have the advantage of being able to then be like an advisor and a sounding board to the organization at large, because you understand the various aspects of what the entire wheel looks like versus just marketing being one spoke in isolation. So I'd say it's a definite advantage that, I think helps people. Having said that, I think, also careers are never, vertical always, right? So just within marketing, there's just so many domains that people can really practice, right? From brand marketing to product marketing, channel marketing, field marketing, the ops. So there's just so many domains to kind of get exposure into. And it's always good for folks in marketing, especially as you kind of build skill sets and understand the entire gamut, is to be able to operate and do multiple roles. So you're appreciative, you're more collaborative. And if you actually have opportunities to get outside of your domain and then come back into marketing, you actually end up being a better marketer. But that's just my personal opinion.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I think sales definitely add advantage. And I think what matters, most is the ability to connect with the target audience. That's what you guys have been doing. What does, Veeam approach? How does Veeam approach customer engagement and retention through its marketing effort? And what are strategies have proven to be most effective in this regard?
I think I mentioned briefly, right? As a practice, this domain has changed significantly, right? In terms of the way we look at pipeline and the way we look at, customer engagement. And obviously, Veeam's it's at the cutting edge of really having exceptional talent. Let me start by saying that as an organization, we've probably got some of the most exceptional talent in the industry. And I don't say this because of biasness of working at Veeam, but genuinely every single day, the peers that I work with, the folks that I work, whether it's in the global team or the country teams, there's just so much to learn, and there's just so much to be able to absorb and kind of connect and share best practices. So, as far as marketers are concerned, this enormous wealth of talent internally that we've got. Now, what does this mean from an organization point of view, right? It means that, the ability or the approach that Veeam has traditionally had is having the perspective of being able to place our customers at the center of everything that we do, even within marketing, right? So rather than driving a value proposition, which is very internalized and what we think is the right thing, a lot of that is driven by what the markets feel, by what our end users should feel. How do we simplify the life? How do we manage data? How do we make it simple for people to be able to continue their day-to-day transaction and work and leave the entire aspect of, let's say, data management, which is what we do, to Veeam. As marketers, I think we've had so ours is a very interesting company. We are a 100% ecosystem or partner-driven company, right? So our entire go-to-market is through, is through channel partners. And we've got a interesting mix of partners, and the diversity in the ecosystem is tremendous. So you've got your core partners, distribution, resellers, etc. You've got your large-scale hyperscalers like the AWSs and Microsofts of the world. You've got your GSIs. These are your global SIs as well as your large Indian SIs. You've got infrastructure partners like an HP, Lenovo. Then you've got your new age partners, MSPs, cloud service providers. You've got marketplaces. So you can imagine the entire length and breadth of partnerships today in this day and age is very different. Now, each of these partners have their own value proposition and the way that we need to work, to be able to go to market together. So as a marketing team, our approach or my team's approach has always been to be able to make sure that we are ready to work with our partners, both to driving Veeam biasness with them, but also through them to be able to reach the right set of partners. So the way we work with a GSI for the enterprise segment or with the hyperscalers for the enterprise segment is very, very different from the way, let's say, we will operate in the marketplace, which is a digital sale, or we will operate with our traditional resellers, which is very transactional for the SMB segment, right? So value proposition changes, our tactics completely change, our approach changes, etc. So obviously for the enterprise, it's very, very high touch. It's one is to few. We want to make sure that, there is an aspect of being able to align back to what the industry need is, what the need of, building, consensus and being a thought leader in the industry versus in the SMB space or the commercial space, it's a lot more programmatic. Tactics can vary from everything from digital air cover to, stuff that we're doing in the field marketing team to be able to drive that mass interest in what we're trying to do and drive a value proposition in that direction. So it really varies. And I think we've got a really strong balance within Veeam to be able to, really carve a niche for ourselves right from the enterprise all the way down to SMB and, sort of drive our message consistently, but, appropriately to what that segment really, really needs from us.
Absolutely. I think tactics can be varied, but the most critical part of any marketer is to establish trust and position itself as a reliable partner to its customer, especially during their digital transformation. And thanks for narrating that. And, what role does data analytics and customer insight play in shaping VM marketing strategy in APAC region? How do you ensure that these insights translate into actionable market practice?
So this is a question that actually goes beyond just Veeam marketing, right? I mean, this is data insights and analytics essentially is the bedrock, I suppose, of any marketing organization today, right? So I've, having engaged with a number of my industry peers and, looking at some of the transformation that's happening within the practice itself, right? There is a single marketer today who is not making data-driven decisions in terms of their day-to-day work, right? Let's start off with the simplicity around, let's say, marketing budgets itself today. Now, all of us know that we are operating in an environment where, it's challenging to be able to drive more and more pipeline with less budget. You enter typically every year and you work with, there's expectation as you grow. But it's not necessary. And maybe, in fact, it's a controversial thing to say. It's not even prudent to be able to put more marketing dollars because, you can't, you just can't keep, expecting more money just because, there is a certain growth trajectory. And so if you kind of think about it, the only thing that really drives these decisions is the ability for us to use analytics and data to make sure that we make informed decisions around where we are investing. So in the traditional world, right, a lot of the investments would be where you're kind of spraying money and hoping for stuff to stick, right? So there wasn't really a method to the madness. Obviously, there were outcomes, there were obviously metrics, but it wasn't a perfect science. Today, when you think of some of the tools, right, especially in the digital space, a lot of the information that we feed in terms of the way we track investments, right from the time that we invest in a program to the outcome of the program.
Yep.
You've got enough and more analytics that come out which define whether we are successful, we're close to goal, or we're completely far away or not. And I think over a period of at least the last few years, organizations have become intelligent enough to be able to understand, and use some of this data to their advantage. So when you let's say, run a set of 10 different campaigns or tactics, you should have the ability as a marketing leader to be able to say that these are the 3 that really give me the best ROI. These are the 3 that give me the best returns. May not give me the best ROI, but it probably gives me the best engagement in the market, not necessarily translating into, let's say, pipeline. And maybe these are the 4 that just don't work for me anymore. Those are the kind of analytics that will feed the engine, where when we are challenged with, higher growth targets, every quarter or every year in terms of pipeline, as well as, let's say, reduction in budgets, etc. How do you make these cuts? You go back to data. You go back to these insights.
Absolutely.
You go back into, making investments that are in line with, what your company's objective is. So if you want to just drive awareness, you could pick from your, historically, and you could continue to innovate, but then you could still use the science to be able to make those decisions. So as an organization at Veeam, and I think in the industry, we've got tools today, which we didn't have even 5, 8, 10 years back. We've got the ability to be able to track where we invest to a large degree. Also, we've got the appetite because marketers are becoming more and more intelligent. So, which is why this whole art and science combination, the expectation when we look at talent in the market isn't just so much who's got the best idea. It's who's got the best business brain, because you want the person to make those decisions which are based out of outcomes, based out of data. So tomorrow, whether it's somebody in your team or yourself, if you are in a boardroom presenting why you did what you did, you've got data backing you. You've got insights and you've got the experience, not just something intangible or a feel-good factor to say it felt good or it looked good. Now, there's a caveat to this, right, or a disclaimer. That doesn't mean that as marketers, we stop innovating or thinking outside the box. I've always encouraged teams and myself to still continue to take risks, to still continue to find newer avenues, right? So it's always this combination of finding, the next best idea, maybe piloting it, finding results, but using analytics to see whether we're actually driving, maybe doing a beta testing of some sort, A/B testing of some sort, and then, finding a decision that really helps you either make it mainstream or just retire it if it doesn't work, or we learn out of it.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I think it'll help you in, more improved decision. You rightly pointed out around the calculated risk. I think as a marketer, it's very important to have a very calculated risk. Having a better customer understanding. That again can come once you leverage data and analytics, and it also, I think, leads to a very higher conversion rate and customer satisfaction. So thank you so very much. Now I'll just going to move down to the next question, which is pretty interesting for a lot of marketers, which is all about ABM and ABX. So what are your thoughts on the recent shift, from ABM to ABX, and how do you think this change will impact, the marketing strategies, and how does ABX align with VM's overall marketing goals and objectives?
I think it's so closely related to your previous question, right? If you kind of define what ABX is, essentially is really being able to use data analytics to be able to be more equipped and, personalized in terms of your ABM strategy, right? A lot of companies who are essentially targeting the enterprise today, I've had discussions with peers in the industry and what are they doing on ABM. One of the underlying common factors that kind of define or separate the successful ones over the ones that are, let's say, mainstream or mediocre but not producing enough results is driving an ABM strategy, which is a combination of two things. One, viewing accounts from a long-term engagement point of view, right? So ABM isn't something that you can run within a quarter and expect results. You put an entire year's worth of plan of how you're creating multiple touch points humanizing each other's brand, truly creating a pathway which goes beyond just marketing tactics of actually addressing those accounts needs, bringing people together. The second piece is this entire aspect of how do you use data intelligence to actually reach out to those accounts, and building the journey that you actually aligned with in terms of driving, your value proposition to them. So it's those companies who've used these two aspects of viewing long term and then using ABX that are typically the ones that who've been extremely successful.
Yeah.
There are a lot of case studies in the industry as well, and I'm not going to name some of the vendors that we work with or some of the partners, large organizations that we work with. But what I've typically seen, right, is we've also, from an ABM perspective, I mentioned, right, multiple touch points. Now, a lot of traditional marketing ABM plans would mean those touch points are, confined to, let's say, a round table, or confined to perhaps, a couple of other initiatives which are very standard. And that's not wrong, by the way, right? But if you look at, using ABM as a tactic, which is around building trust, with a certain secure targeting, right? I've seen case studies where organizations have gone beyond in terms of truly customizing what their accounts real need is, right? Take banks, for example. I'm making this up, by the way, right? If you think of, let's say, the banking industry, and if there's a particular bank that I'd like to, build an ABM plan for, right? So I'm an organization and I'm targeting a bank. So typically, I would look at that bank's value proposition to its end users, right? Now, one, there'll be a technology value proposition. Second is there'll be a financial value proposition for the bank will have to its customers. And the third and most important is there'll be a community value proposition that the bank will have, right? Because a lot of financial institutions today are also, have the entire approach of truly, making a difference in the communities that they operate in, right? So if you think of these three things, right, of what they do, I'll have to build an ABM plan that touches and makes a difference on all three things.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with just my product that I'm trying to sell to the bank. You get my point? And so my touch over the next 12 months, for example, or even 18 months, will be to engage with this account through multiple layers of tactics, which actually humanizes our relationship, but then makes a difference to these three objectives that they actually have, right? The other thing that I would do, and a lot of companies, including Veeam, looks at buying groups today. And buying groups is an interesting concept, right? Which is, let's take the same example of a bank. Now, the way I would look at a buying group within a bank is you've got multiple influencers who I need to, influence in the bank's account. There'll be, let's say, the IT manager, right? There'll be a database administrator, but there'll also be somebody who's like a CTO, right? And they're two very different personas. So my entire buying group will probably be a combination of 8 to 10 different people in the bank, each of them having very different personas, and the value proposition is very different. My value proposition for a CFO, if I'm targeting them, is how can my technology help them save money? My value proposition for a CTO will be, how will my technology help their bank be more secure? Right? My value proposition to the IT managers, how can my technology be easily deployed? You see, three different value propositions.
Yeah.
Well, you think of this as as an ABM piece. And if I have one single stream where I'm just talking about my purpose, it means nothing unless, each of my different personas find value in terms of what does it mean for me can I deploy it easily? Can I save money? Can it make life more secure for my customers? So I kind of, think of ABM as this piece of the puzzle which requires some real strategic thinking and a commitment from an organization's side to be able to really invest in the longer term and then be patient enough to be able to translate that into humanizing your relationship. And finally, all of this becomes really, um, it becomes real with the use of ABX, right? Because then I start using analytics and data to start backing some of my, investments, and how they're actually translating into, an actual ROI as far as, what are we, bringing out of that account engagement. So, that's a little bit about how I would approach this.
Okay, thanks a lot. I love the kind of the detailing which you did, and definitely agree with you. Where ABS definitely enable us to build a stronger trust and in fact relationship, and in fact it also foster a very deeper engagement with our customers. You mentioned about the buying group or committee which we term. So that's very important, and definitely that value proposition is very important. Thank you so very much. I think let me talk a little bit about the challenges. What are the most significant marketing challenges that you are currently facing? Additionally, how does Veeam maintain a competitive edge in terms of low customer acquisition cost and retention rates?
It's an interesting question. I think the challenges that are universal and not a Veeam challenge alone are firstly the the adoption of new technologies and the appetite for companies to change gears. I think that's a challenge because let's use the example of COVID, right? And I'm not going to go back to using COVID too many times, but when that happened, everyone's approach to marketing changed, right? It became virtual. You know this. You probably get out marketing as well. Maybe even had series about talking on COVID, right? So the challenge at the time was to be able to use different technologies, to be able to change efforts, etc. Right? Now in this post-COVID world as well, right? I still think that there is a certain amount of customer fatigue that is setting in, right? People are living in this hybrid environment where people either work from home, go to office, or a combination of both. People are hard pressed for time. Our customers that we want to target, there's just so much of information out there, right? There's just, how much can a human being consume at one point of time, right? So with vast wealth of information available, with the fact that people are hard pressed for time, how do you still continue to maintain a differentiation and create an impact in the buying groups that you truly are after, right? So that is a big challenge, right? It's how do you continue to innovate? So in the environment today, so my biggest thing that I always keep going back to is to be able to cut through the noise. You need to be able to be a marketer that actually can genuinely come out with a value proposition and creativity that sets yourself apart from your competition and what everybody else in the market are doing today, right? I continue to challenge both myself and my team as in trying to explore technology, because I genuinely think technology is like like a miracle pill to everything, where we can change the way we go to market, right? Like I'll give you a crazy example. I want to be, let's say, I want to bring an MD of a certain country into 5 different places at the same time. It's humanly not possible. But maybe we create a hologram. Is there a technology company that can do and stream this person on, Times Square, and at the same time in front of the Sydney Opera House, at the same time in front of, Sentosa? I'm making this up, right? So think about it, right? It can't happen right now, right? But there's like a hologram of this person. So that's what I mean. The challenge is finding these cutting edge things that can, cut through the clutter, what no one has done. But you'll need to keep innovating, and you'll need to keep going back and going to the drawing board, and you'll need to keep using our, analytics and data to back you, to experiment, etc. That's the challenge. Don't get into the rut of doing the same thing and expecting the same results and then repeating, because after a while that fatigue that you're seeing isn't going to differentiate, and you're going to start seeing an impact on numbers.
Absolutely. I think it's all about effectively cutting the clutter and grabbing the customer. Thank you so very much. And what does the marketing trend look like in 2024? Although we are done with the Q1, but because I think that in 2023 we just saw the rise of Gen AI, personalized messaging, personalized advertising, AI powered chatbots, and predictive analytics, and many more trends. So how do you think this 2024 will going to be an extension of 2023, or do you think the fresh set of trends is expected to float into the market?
I think we will continue to evolve. I think one of the things that let's say there are two or three things that I observe or I think will continue, right? The first is that we will continue to have marketers, all of us, leaning back on data to be able to make investments, because I think budgets will be challenged in the current economy. Yeah. Everyone will go through an experience where, more is expected of less. So both from a resource as well as marketing budgets, there will be challenges in 2024 that I foresee. And the expectation will never be that, if there is, let's say, a cut in budgets, that pipeline expectation is less. That's never going to be the case. So that's the first piece, that we'll need to operate in a world where we will need to go back and make data-driven decisions. Yeah. And that will be kind of a continuation from the last year into this year. The second is around efficiency and productivity. There are a lot of tools. You mentioned, AI-driven tools. Everyone's speaking about stuff like ChatGPT, etc., right? I think some of these will become a lot more commercialized. They'll become a lot more mainstream, meaning that, AI-driven tools today, especially in the enterprise segment, for companies or for marketers to use, are not going to be common unless companies can truly ring-fence the data that they're feeding into the system. Meaning that you'd want a ChatGPT that is just for AWS employees, and the data that employee feeds in doesn't go outside. Similarly, for, let's say, Microsoft may want to do it, or you may want to have, Veeam want to do something. So you will have all of those tools that will continue to expand and get commercialized, will become more mainstream. But I think what will happen is they will be ring-fenced so that people can still make the most of that technology without having the risk that could potentially be associated with it, which is, around making sure that you still hold on to some of the confidential data or strategies or insights that your company may have, where there is a possibility where if you're still using, let's say, a mainstream ChatGPT, it actually isn't something that is, allowed through your corporate. So that's the second thing there, where technology will get more mainstream, will get commercialized, and will be ring-fenced to a certain extent. The third, to some degree, I think goes back to the points that I made earlier as well, which is around, how do we, what's our balance between what we do in the enterprise and in the commercial segment as well, right? And the differentiation that we create. I think what we will continue to see is a continued investment and growth trend on the enterprise side, because a lot of the companies, especially in our segment, right, are maniacally focused on making sure that we serve the enterprise. And what you'll continue seeing is an added investment in terms of 1:few programs. So a lot of the ABM, ABX mix that you're kind of seeing in the markets will sustain, will continue to grow in terms of the investments being made. I see probably less of some of the 1:many kind of investments, which are more mainstream, meaning that some of the larger events that you've typically done may not be as much, because again, people will be challenged as far as budgets are concerned. Yeah. So like, if you ask me if I had $100 this year compared to $150 last year, I'd still be more invested in some of the stuff that I'm doing in the enterprise segment without compromising that, versus, let's say, spending the same or making a reduction in that. If the reduction I had to make would be more in terms of some of the larger events that I would typically do, which typically were driven more just to drive awareness versus a direct impact. So a lot of the investments would be geared towards programs that drive direct ROI. I think those are fundamentally two or three things that I continue estimating would continue to sustain through 2024.
Thank you. I think investment around ROI is very important, and leveraging data for informed decision. That's what you mentioned, and definitely technology, how technology can be enabler. So thanks, Behzaad. Behzaad, I think we need to get ready to embrace personalization with our video, harness the potential of AI. So I think, the future of 2024 looks to be bright and pretty exciting for all of us. With this, we come to the end of the episode. Thanks, Behzaad, for such an insightful marketing session. We really had a great pleasure interacting.
Hey, pleasure is all mine. And, I truly hope that this is of some value to my fellow marketers.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to continuing to, engage as we go forward.
Thanks a lot.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.